Well, so what we non-supporters do in this case is over the years, if we're putting something out there and it's not completely correct, we will get under, we will message each other and we will show each other, hey, you're wrong here, you're wrong there. Supporters don't do that very much. Now, we were talking about the video that I put up where I say that Jimmy Patterson never took the fifth. And literally, he never said, I'm taking the fifth. But if you go, now Pam corrected me and said, yes, he did. Right? Pam corrected me. So I went back and looked. Greg Davis at the end of it says, since both of these officers invoked the fifth. So I'll give credit. Patterson never said, I'm taking the fifth on this case. He did say, I'm not going to answer any more questions if you're going to accuse me of this crime. The judge, who has Alzheimer's and doesn't know how to run a court case, apparently, the judge said, hey, he's accusing you of a crime here, and you could invoke the fifth if you wanted to. But then Mulder went on to another, they suggested he go on to another subject. What Patterson did was he just said he wasn't going to answer any more questions based on the wiretapping at the gravesite. You never hear him say that I'm taking the fifth. However, he refused to answer questions on that part. So I will give supporters a little bit of credit on that, except for the fact that he did not refuse to answer any more questions about the case. If I accuse somebody in open court of that's a felony, he can refuse to speak on that, which is exactly what he did. He said he wanted to read up a little bit more about the law on it, and the judge told him to move on to something else. So at that time, he did not take the fifth, and at any other time did he take the fifth. Well, Davis calls it the fifth because he refused to answer that question. Technically, it's the fifth. But he didn't go on and, like I said, Patterson didn't go on and refuse to answer any other questions that were relevant to the case. So, there's nowhere in it, just like my video said, you'd never hear Patterson say he took the fifth, because he didn't. In my opinion, he just refused to answer that question. Because you can see that the evidence is that he continued to speak on about other issues where he wasn't being accused of a crime. But he did not take the fifth. Someone said you're taking the fifth. Someone said, so you're taking the fifth. And Davis said they take, but he never. The Fifth Amendment, like if he didn't want to, like if I didn't want to testify in my son's trial, they had, let's say, because they did have me as a witness for the state. If I didn't want to testify at all, as soon as they got me on the stand, I would say I invoke my Fifth Amendment, my right to remain silent. Not based on the grounds that it would incriminate me, but my right to remain silent. If I invoke my Fifth Amendment in the court at the beginning of trial, then I don't have to answer any more questions at all, period. But you have to make it clear that you're invoking the fifth. And Jimmy Patterson never did that. So I will give the supporters just a tad bit on that, because where I said he never took the fifth, and they're showing, well, this guy asked him was he taking the fifth, and this guy said he took the fifth, but Jimmy Patterson never took. I'll give him this. Jimmy Patterson never took the fifth based on the entirety of the trial. I will rephrase myself. Jimmy Patterson refused to answer questions where he was being accused of a federal felony. That's the only answer. That's the only question he refused to answer. So, I'm glad that the non-supporters, like if we see each other over the years and we see somebody putting something out that isn't completely correct or could be wrong, we will get in there and correct each other because we don't want to put out false information. We really don't want to do that. So I'm not going to double down and say no, he didn't take the fifth, but I am going to say he refused to answer that question and only that question about the wiretapping, and went on to testify about everything else. But I won't double down on a lie. You know, like when somebody tells me superficial means that's where the wound is and it's not the, that's doubling down. I'm not going to double down on this. But I can tell you that Jimmy Patterson did not refuse to answer any other questions in the case, and he was able to be cross-examined. That's how the non-supporters do each other. So Pam corrected me. She said he did take the fifth. And I went back and looked, and I still didn't see him saying it, but I saw a couple people say, so you're taking the fifth, so you're going to invoke your fifth. And they say yes. Now that I didn't see before. But again, it wasn't like a complete fifth. So one of the reasons that us non-supporters know so much is we will not, supporters will let somebody get up there and tell a damn lie. They won't say, no, that's not what happened. We correct each other. We learn and we feed off of each other. So she corrected me. Now I come back and I'll state it. I'm not going to double down on that. But I can still honestly tell you that you never hear Jimmy Patterson say I invoked the fifth on that stand. That was correct. Piece of chicken grease.